Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Hi, everybody. Joe Trippi here, Democratic strategist and host of that Trippi Show, and my new show, On the Ground with Joe Trippi. We're going to have some episodes of on the Ground coming out shortly on Texas and California. Today, the other Joe, celebrated journalist Joe Klein, is out for a week or so, and joining me today is the other Joe, Joe Costello, who
you just went. You hit the mute. You hit the mute. You're muted. Cannot hear. I can't hear you. I think your mute button's on. There you go.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay. Hey, guys, so our technology is going really good. I don't know. Where did you lose me, Joe? What was I saying?
Just when you were introducing me.
Okay. So with me today is the other Joe. Joe Klein's is going to be out for a week or so. The other Joe, Joe Costello, a real innovator. We go back at least to 1980 or so in politics. He, like me, is frustrated. I mean, we're both optimistic and energized by technology, but also frustrated with how TV was dominating everything as a one-way kind of, messaging. And we really craved the, talking to people and that engagement back and forth. And so in both the Jerry Brown and Howard Dean campaigns, Costello was instrumental in a lot of things that worked there. And we'll get into that maybe. But Joe, welcome to the two Joe show. Look, I know you've been really thinking a lot about AI. Again, talking about how the 800 number in the Jerry Brown campaign that was your attempt. And I joined you in it a little bit to try to get people to at least interact with those with what was going on TV, and then the Dean campaign. But what's your take on what's happening today in politics? And that you can go AI, you can go anywhere you want, but I really wanted to get your take.
Well, I think we're in trouble. Obviously, I think pretty much everyone believes that. And I mean, I think part of the reason is because, we're 250 years old, right? The Declaration is 250 years old, and the Declaration is really the founding document of the U.S. And we've, and the problem is, and then, 12 years later, we have the Constitution. And the problem is we haven't changed anything, in the Constitution. And we treat the Constitution as if it's sacred, and it's not sacred. And, Jefferson, for example, thought that we should have, a new Constitution every 20 or 30 years. So here we are almost 250 years later, and we haven't changed anything. And yet at the same time, technologically, when the Constitution was signed, we had 90% of America was farming.
Yeah.
Today, it's less than 2% is farming. It's 1.5%. So we've had this massive technological change, which you want to call the Industrial Revolution, which the agrarian republic of, the Constitution did not do well with. It completely kind of rolled it over in all sorts of ways. And now we have a new technological revolution, with this information technology and compute. And now it's even more obvious that, kind of our system of government isn't working. And we've got to start thinking about how we change these things and how we do things differently. and how we bring people into government. That's what we need to do. I mean, the big thing about democracy, right? Democracy is about people having decision power. And today, people don't have much decision power whatsoever, ever, every once in a while, a couple of years. And in order to do that, you have to have an underlying politics before the elections, right? And this underlying politics is about issues and about people learning and about people talking to each other. The elections are really only one last part of this whole process, but we've lost all the rest of that process. And so,
yeah, well, now it's like knocking on doors every 2 years in October.
Yeah, exactly. And that doesn't work.
It's like it's a disaster. I mean, I know in the Dean campaign, we really tried to develop ways to empower people, to get them at meetups or whatever, to get them to engage together. And then, of course, the only lesson anybody learned was, you could raise a lot of money with email. That was it. Not that you could have people meeting together or organizing together or talking about issues or anything.
The problem with, campaigns, and they should be much shorter. Like, they don't need to be, but campaigns provide their own kind of, ending, and they become like just brutal in, and deciding what you can do. So you can't develop around that. Like, we tried with the Dean campaign and it was really good, to get people starting talking with each other and everything. But then once the elections start coming around, that becomes its own end and it takes over everything. And so all the rest of that stuff goes out the window, right?
Yeah.
And so,
the campaign ends. And some of it carried on a little bit, Dean for America or whatever. You know what I'm saying?
But we've been really brutal, and we've been really brutal in this country in that if you lose a campaign, then all of a sudden that becomes, they lost. So you can't do that.
And then you have whatever the winners do, like Obama wins. They didn't do anything with that stuff. Nothing. I mean, they went totally the other. Money, emails do money. That's the only that's where they went with it. Everybody did after that.
Right.
So what do you I know the Pope's encyclical. I mean, do you have the quote of the week, or do you want to get to AI a little bit, or
sure. I have
put up the quote of the week for us.
Yeah. Okay. This was suggested. They suggested we talk about this, which is an interesting thing because don't go Costello once again, the papist that he always was. But anyway, here we go. So he writes, and it's interesting, like that it comes up to the Pope and the Catholic Church to come with some of the real criticism about what's going on here. And he's talking about AI. He has a category. It starts breaking the chains of new forms of slavery. And then it's a new sentence. This distorted view of human person is reflected today in various forms of servitude directly linked to the digital economy. Nothing in the world of AI is immaterial or magical. Every seemingly immediate and flawless response is the result of a long chain of mediation involving vast networks of natural resources, energy infrastructure, and above all, people. And, this is, we're leaving out here, and with the one thing I'm trying to talk to people about, trying to get them to think about with AI is that what you're doing is you're just giving this enormous power to just a handful of corporations. And people kind of understand that, but they're not, again, we have a political system that is not in any way engaging this. And that's a big problem. But people are understanding that power is being stripped more so from their hands than it was before. And that's a real problem. And the other thing is that a couple people, it's really important with this, is once you automate something, it sets in a certain rigidity. And it's very hard to displace that rigidity with something new. Like in computer stuff, we called it, 30 years ago, the And now it's slipping my mind right now, but the first person in gets all the benefits, right? Yeah. Because everybody who
the first mover,
so everybody gets so because once people get onto something, it's hard, they don't really want to change it unless it goes thing. But it's much deeper than that, and that once you create these networks that are entrenched, it's almost impossible to stop them.
Yeah,
and
like
this
Amazon is a good one.
Sorry.
Amazon is a good one.
Yeah. A really good one.
I don't know if you can hear me, but my mic's starting to have some problems.
I can hear you.
Okay, cool. So what do you again, this isn't about 2026 or 2028. I mean, I know everybody wants to hear about that, but all the energy, the water, everything that all this stuff is going to do, besides the fact that we're now all basically, being data mined to create more monetization for the rich guys who then do more data mining and buy more, more stuff, more content that we present, we create it. They run the data and then use it to manipulate the hell out of us. And again, then we pay higher, utility costs, everything. So
right.
How do you?
Well, these data centers, I mean, that's part of also kind of the rigidity of technology, which people aren't looking at, is that once you put these certain architectures in these certain, structures, then even the technologists, right, all they're looking at is what's already there, and they're trying to just build on top of that. And so this whole quote unquote AI, and there's very little intelligent about this, but
I agree.
But this whole thing, it's brute force. It's these NVIDIA chips, right. and look, and I just want to say this because you have to say this all the time. This technology is extremely powerful, and we need to have a big discussion and keep having discussions about how it's used. So I'm not in any way trying to, say, oh, blah, 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 blah. And the one thing I've learned in following tech for 40 years is when people start nitpicking and saying this doesn't work and that doesn't work, it'll get there, guaranteed. Right. And what you got to worry about is what's working right now and what they're building with that. And so right. These data centers is just insane. They use massive amounts of energy, massive amounts of water, and there's this whole and then it's controlled by a handful of corporations, and then it's been amazing how they've just data stripped the whole internet with no and there's been no opposition to like kind of call it copyrights or whatever you want to call the value of your privacy, whatever. There's been no opposition. They're just doing it, and then it's just moving forward, and no one says anything, And it's so. But again, that's part of what our politics, I've been talking for a long time. We need a politics of technology. Technology is politics. We need to understand that when you start putting in a technological infrastructure, there's political component to it, and we don't understand that at all.
Well, in Utah, they just passed the data processing center siting that will be a data center that is the size of Manhattan.
Yeah,
they've taken the amount of water and energy that will run up on the people of Utah, and the legislature just did it. It was like, I'm sure they got loaded with money and cash from the AI guys and the data center.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's just insane the amount of energy they need for these things. And I did when I was trying to get out of doing campaign stuff 30 years ago. I was doing electricity in California for a half dozen years, and so I know this issue well. And the amount of energy that these guys are saying they're going to need, there's no way that's going to be provided. There's no way that's going to be provided, and for example, so then they just throw And there's no check on what these guys say. I mean, a lot of these guys that are doing this, they say the stupidest things, like Sam Altman, Elon Musk. They say the stupidest things, and no one holds them accountable for what they're saying. And on top of it, and this is a very interesting thing that I kind of figured out just recently, is, they're putting forth kind of a technological utopia, right? And there's a lot of people that believe in technology. I mean, it's kind of funny with the Pope, and I think the Pope actually brought that up, is we're trading religion for technology, is what we're doing. And so then, so you go and say, well, in the past, you've had these utopias and da, 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 da. And someone said to me recently, well, there's no real utopia for this. And I said, no, you know what it is? It's science fiction, because we've so been inundated with science fiction all the last 30 years that people, and so little science, that people have no ability to differentiate between the science and the fiction. And so they just think, oh yeah, we're going to be able to do all this. I mean, when Elon says about Mars, it's just nuts, because there's reasons we're not there.
Data centers in space, you think, are not.
And that's even better. I mean, but they say these things, and then
Didn't Amazon just do a deal with SpaceX to do data centers in space?
That's what I guess that's what the deal is. But he's putting up his own rockets too now, right? Yeah, Bezos is starting to put up his own rockets.
Yeah.
So it's a very weird time in the sense of, you can imagine what people must have thought 100 years ago, 120 years ago, the farmers, when they started the populists, for example, in America, when they were coming up against these new industrial technologies. It was changing their life completely. And now this information technology is kind of doing the same thing, but, God, we should be a little bit smarter about all this, but we're not. So I don't know what to say about that.
Well, here's the theory I have. I just want to get your take on this. It's totally a bizarre one, but I think so. What these guys really figured out how to do is, like, we are these human beings with brains and hands and everything, and they figured out how to addict us to turning our atoms into bits. And so we are addicted, we create bits. We use the brain cell, our atoms in our brain and our flesh and everything to create bits that they then monetize and use to manipulate, and they sell them to advertisers, and they monetize our bits, pay us nothing for it. In fact, charge us, charge us to get. I mean, you're ordering something on Amazon. Those are bits that they're going to use to manipulate you about something later on, and then they addict us to it with their algorithms and the bots and everything. They addict you to it. So you've got millions and millions and millions, billions of people around the globe who are addicted to using their energy, our energy, not oil, although there's plenty of that going on with powering our life, but our energy to create bits that they monetize to manipulate us. And we're so addicted to it that we cannot, and like you said, with Amazon, it's so simple. Oh yeah, I can get this, it'll be here tomorrow. And so we're addicted to that too. And the more addicted we get, the more money they make,
right?
By the way, and then, which means they can launch rockets, they can pass all the bullshit about data centers in space and colonizing Mars in 5 years or 10 years, whenever they think this is going to happen. By the way, I don't see Elon making that trip, but I pay a lot.
I think we should make it that he has to be the first one to go. That would be good. There'll be a lot for him to do up there.
Yeah.
There'll be a lot for him to do up there.
The one thing, the other thing I wanted to talk to a little bit about is corruption. Not just the Trump, but corruption writ large. And the one thing that it strikes me, I know, he can pardon people, and people can do illegal things and know that they can get pardoned by Trump and all that. But what I don't understand is why, local DAs and AGs can indict somebody. Some of these scams had to happen in a state, right? I mean, you had to have a deal. Hey, I'll give you $1 billion, so you'll look the other way, Mr. Trump or whoever, and I can make $100 billion. And they did it. And those guys could all be indicted by somebody, not the federal government. I mean, they're not safe, but no one's doing it. I don't understand. I don't know if you have why is that? Is that the system? Is that?
Yeah, I mean, we've got a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Well, it's case in point, which is an interesting thing. And, I've sent you a couple of emails about, associated with this, is the fight against these data centers is happening at the local level. And It's really a prairie fire across the whole country. Like there's been almost 50 of them stopped. There's another 100 of them being passed. And I'm in southern Michigan right now, where one of my sisters lives. And just in the last month, it went from a rumor. It was one of the most interesting political experiences of my life. It went from a rumor that a data center was coming in to where there was an actual thing, and they organized people and they stopped it. That they put a 1-year moratorium in a period of 4 weeks, and we brought 250 people to a township meeting, right? So like these townships probably had maybe 10 people at a meeting before that, So these guys, were like, they didn't know what happened. And, it was very interesting, but everybody's learning about it at the same time. So the structure of the old republic is all there. It's kind of got to be revitalized and evolved. And, but
local, to get more people locally talking to each other.
Yeah. And then what I say is what you got to then do is network the local. It's not like going back, and going and saying, oh, we're all just going to pull a plug and go here, live by ourselves. No, it's about how you network those things together, right? It's the whole question of, which is the big kind of, to me, it's the biggest and most revolutionary idea is this idea of, because human societies have always been very hierarchical, and it's a way of controlling information. That was always a way of controlling information, because as we went from hunter-gatherers to agrarian to industrial, the more technology you get, the more information complexity you get, and then you got to be able to do that. Whereas what we've discovered, especially with biology in the last 100 years, is that order is networked. It's distributed. There's no order coming from above that's going and saying, this is how we're doing it. It all comes from below. But that has not in any way translated into our political understanding, except for one thing, except for democracy. That's what it always was. And so they were ahead of the game there, but we've lost it. So,
well, and I do think that's what we were trying to do in the Dean thing, was to get
absolutely.
Local networks going, and to have them all networked across the country with the meetups. And then,
well, that was the idea of the internet, right? You were there at the beginning of the internet when everybody was saying all this stuff, and well, that was never true because Mitch and I had a conversation with him this was 30 years ago, and I was talking about client server architecture. I said, this is not a democratic architecture.
Right.
And he just kind of dismissed it and said, well, it's very powerful, but that's where we're at. Basically, if you look at, compute technology, these data centers are just basically new mainframes. And what they want to do is put all the information in the mainframe and give you nothing. Like, the whole PC revolution was this idea that you could put compute on the desktop. But what they want to do is just take it all back now. That's what it's happening.
That's what I'm saying. We're creating the bits. They take them and they put them in the big data centers. Use that data to manipulate us and bring it back to you. All our brains. You had to figure out this or that or the other thing. Well, and we're screwed. We're paying for it, and we're not.
And the other thing is with information, and this is really important because it's a thing. There's this guy Norbert Wiener, who everybody should know because he developed the concept of he kind of the modern concept of feedback. He wasn't the first one, but he really developed it for computers and stuff like that. And this is really important. Feedback is important to automation. And like a lot of this, what they're doing right now, there's processes of feedback involved in it. But he said information is neither energy nor matter, which is an interesting concept. But it manifests itself. It has to manifest itself either one way or the other. So all this information right now, because we can't figure out, because it's so controlled by, I'm not sure what the right word to use, because capitalism is, but markets, whatever. But because you got to monetize it all, that, like Google, a big chunk of Google's revenue is from advertising. Facebook's advertising is almost all its revenue. So it's just kind of crazy with all this information that the only way we can think of getting value from it is by monetizing it. Why can't, every day we talk to each other and pass back and forth information that we don't monetize? So how do we rebuild that?
They don't monetize any of it. They monetize it, and they
Well, they monetize
that's
it, right?
The whole point. That's my point.
Right.
My whole point about them addicting
exactly.
Our data.
But that's all we're doing with it. It's just kind of fascinating.
We mindlessly continue to give them our bits. And give it to them for free. And no one argues. No one in Washington. No one does a damn thing about it. And it is in the hands of 5, 6. People.
Well, most of the people don't. I mean, most. And certainly, and I won't point, just pick on the elected officials, but it's true. But I mean, most of them don't know anything about how the technology works. So that's a problem. Most of us don't know how it works. Most of us never understood how a car worked. You knew how a car worked, but most people don't know how a car works. So you get in, you go to mechanic. So now the computer's the same thing. There's all this stuff happening, like in now these data centers, but everybody doesn't understand. But you can understand, everyone can understand the fundamentals of an internal combustion engine, without having to rip it apart, but they can know how it works. Everybody can understand this technology and how it's structured and the architecture of it. But, we're not teaching it. Like, everybody should learn that out of grade school. They should know how these systems work. They don't have to be coding in Python or anything, but, they could.
Coding's not going to be a very important thing anymore. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know what you think. Are they going to be the first to go?
It looks that way.
Yeah. Like we tell people 5 years ago, coding, learn to code, you'll have a job for life. Guess what? First job's gone. Coders, right? People write software. So it's, at some point, people, I keep saying, hey, man, it's time to revolt and be human, because these guys, they will addict us all right into the, into the doom scrolling future that they're taking us to, in my view. And they're all of them with their algorithms are helping to create the division and the hatred that's out there. It's spreading all over the place on social networks. They're enablers, and it helps them because it gets more engagement. And again, if we're all screaming at each other, that's great. More eyeballs that we can sell to whoever. It's and the advertisers, they're fine with it too.
But when they got all the money, who are they going to sell anything to?
Yeah, exactly.
And no one's working. Well, let me tell you. I mean, this is I did my book last year, and you had me on, and that was great. And when I was out and talking about it, I can't tell you that AI is the biggest issue in my life, political issue. Like, you can get talking with people on this issue instantly. And one of the reasons is because these knuckleheads are going all around going, oh, we're going to take your jobs. And people are like, well.
No. And we might even be an existential threat to the human race.
Yeah.
But we want to be unfettered and do whatever. Do not regulate us to do anything.
It's in everybody's head.
Yeah.
And I'm just amazed that, but like I said, the data center thing is spreading across the country right now, and maybe something will come out of that. And what it is this township here in Southern Michigan, it's part of the county, this county, it went 67% for Trump. Okay. Yeah. This is not a red-blue issue. It goes
all in on it, and he's all in on AI. I mean, he's all in, like whatever.
Yeah. Well, so are the Democrats for the most part too, right? You don't hear much opposition.
No, but it's like you said, they don't even know what it is.
Yeah.
They just know we've got to beat China at it. Whatever it is, we got to beat China, right? It's like,
I know, it's the same thing. It's crazy. It's insane. I don't get. It's a very weird time, But I guess that's just what politics. I mean, we're in a very historical era, and and really, it's been for 200 years. The amount of change that the human race has gone through in 200 years has just been incredible. And now this is the next step, and it's we didn't do the first part that great. So,
yeah, I was just touring. I just was visiting World War around Memorial Day. I visited World War I battlefields in rural France.
Oh, nice.
No, what's amazing is the trenches are still there. The trenches those guys dug, the German trenches, and then the trenches the Allies dug, they're still there. I mean, you can walk into the and what's amazing, like in the Battle of Somme, we threw 3 million men at it, lost 1 million casualties. Took 141 days. It was trench warfare. We just kept sending 18-year-olds and 19-year-olds, out of the trench into the battle, and got them all killed. And today, with all the change that's happened, that was 100 years ago. It was like June or July 1st, 1916, I think, that battle. So it's 100 years ago, and guess what's Russia's doing it in Ukraine? Same exact. Didn't learn anything. The damn thing. It's the same stuff. While all this other technological change has been going on, and drones and everything else. But where can people? We usually try to go about a half an hour. You got something else you want to talk about, Joe? But I'd like you to be able to tell people where they can read more along these lines, what you're thinking on AI, all these things, and up by 4 and everything else that you do.
All right, you can get. I have a email list called Life in the 21st Century, and you can just Google it. Google it. Life in the 21st Century, Joe Costello. And you can get on that, and I put something out regularly on that. And then
your book,
my book is called The Politics of Ape and Machine: Power as Organization, and you can get that anywhere, any place that sells books. You can look that up. And then I don't know, other things. I think I will say one thing, because it's been interesting. As far as the whole Strait of Hormuz goes, it's been a very interesting process, because to shut down the Strait of Hormuz was an act of stupidity, monumental, that I've seen America do a lot of stupid things, but that's at the top of the list. So we're still kind of drifting along, and we're using up all our reserves, and so right now what they're doing is they're taking our strategic reserves, which was formed in the 70s, and again, this is important for people to know, with the first oil crisis, and it basically could do 700 million barrels, hold 700 million barrels, but it was down to 400 million barrels when the war started, and now they've been putting out.
Because of Ukraine and other things,
now they put out
and stuff like that. Yeah.
And now they're pushing out 10 million barrels a week, and they're taking that and they're putting that on the market. And so, we're not getting any money for that. I'll guarantee you that. And then they're putting it out to Europe and to Asia. It's not going here. So we're using our reserves to do that. And at some point. And, I think Trump gets that time is not on his side, but I don't think he understands how much time is on the Iranian side. So it's an interesting thing. And there's been massive economic dislocation across the globe, least of it here to this point, but except for the rise in gas. But if that doesn't get straightened out, it's going to be not a great thing. So we'll see what happens. But
look, it's I was speaking to somebody who was negotiating with in Afghanistan with the Taliban, and was going. I mean, this is past, but I know them, and we were talking, and they said that it was like you go in and talk about how we have all these men and all this weaponry, and they would just look at you and said, "Yeah, you've got all that, and we have time."
Right.
And that's essentially Iran is the same thing, right? We've got all this. We can send missiles in at $1 million a pop, or 100 million a pop, whatever it is, and they got time. It's like, hey, how many days is it till Taiwan runs out of natural gas? Oh, a month. Hey, well, we can wait. We can hold out for a month. When does Japan run out? Oh, 45 days. Oh, we can hold. Hey, when are the U.S. elections? November. Oh, we can hold out that long. I mean, that's what's going on. It's just, and you're right though. When do you see it really? I mean, at some point, it's got to blow up into more stuff than just get high gas prices.
Well, it is across the country. I mean, across the world. Like Africa and parts of Asia are really having big problems right now, and it's growing in Europe. So they were saying for a couple of years, and oil numbers are, let's say, slippery at the best. But, they were saying for a couple of years there was a kind of a glut of oil. And I think, that was true. So there was more oil sloshing around. But so now who you're going to believe about when it gives out, because a lot of people were saying May, but here we are in May and it's kind of going, now I'm seeing July. So I don't know, again, because these numbers are, there's no it's so funny because, we're talking about all this information stuff, but, getting good oil numbers is still almost impossible because it's run by the oil companies and they don't have any particular interest in providing everybody with a lot of great numbers, or do the Iranians, or do the Sauds for that matter, So it's so anyway, what I've been seeing lately is July.
But they'll be happy making money by keeping prices up, even as there's more oil, they'll still be charging.
Absolutely. I mean, they brought it up right away, and when they raised that price over the last month, that was oil they already had in the ground. So like that. I mean, not in the ground, but in their pipeline, so that did not cost that oil. They've made a lot. I mean, they released the first quarter profits, and they jumped amazingly. So they're going to be even more, with this quarter. So it's an interesting thing, and and the other thing that's important to understand is like I followed this forever. So is that people like to say, well, oil's not as important to the economy. Two things on that. It's not true, because oil is essential to everything that's on top of it. So if that oil went away, everything on top of it would fall apart, right? Secondly, if you look at say half of this country right now, kind of economic good times never come. And all of a sudden they're having to spend another $40, $50, $100 to get to their job every week. That's a real burden. And a lot of those people are not, they voted for Trump. I mean, so it's an interesting thing. And, and I look at these last elections and, especially like this Massey election, you can look at Massey because, Trump's putting himself right in the middle of these elections. So you look at him, and I don't want to get anybody's hopes up, especially Democrats, but if you look at these last elections, Massey's election, you could say almost 50% of the people voted against Trump. Republicans.
Yes, they did.
Not Democrats, Republicans voted against Trump. Okay. Now, if he loses half of those, if they lose half those people in the general, it would be a blowout of major proportions,
And some of them are going to stay home. Some of those people will stay, in my view. I mean, I agree with you about hey, nobody start counting seats or anything. I do think we'll take the House, all that stuff. But I do think that when you look at what, the Cornyn race, even if it was, I think he got 38% of the vote. But that's, and look at what you get. What you get is Paxton. It's the most corrupt guy on the planet is in the probably the most, could rival Trump for corruption. Oh, no one can rival him for corruption. But you know what I'm saying? But I mean,
he's brought it to a whole new level, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. But I'm just saying, like, you look at that. There's no way. What's that 38% in Texas going to do? Are they going to go full bore for Paxton, or some of them going to stay home? I'm not saying many of them will vote for Tallarico, but if some of them stay home, that's that you're right. It'll be a big, and Latinos are gone. They built those districts in Texas based on the numbers that Trump got in 2024 with the Latino community, and also based on what he got with independents in 2024. Neither of those two things are true anymore. So, and then you see him getting involved in these races, and he's not getting that 90% thing, where he could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue and he must have had a good reason. That's not happening.
Yeah. I mean, because you got to look at those that he's very much in those races, and they put him in those races. I mean, I'm in Michigan, and they're running some ads with, the Republicans about Trump likes me, blah, 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 and the primary things, it's like you're doing the Democrats' job right now,
Yeah. Henson in Iowa, the Republican senator there, is actually running around saying how proud she is that Donald Trump's endorsed her. And I posted on X that, like, don't please no one tell her that his favorable in Iowa is now 14 points underwater. So she's out there, he's now negative 14, and she's still out there thinking like he's God or something.
The first time I noticed this was in 2006, when the Republicans, by that time, Iraq was like, everybody thought it was a disaster, and the Republicans wouldn't run away from W, right? Yeah. And I was kind of amazed about that. And then, and of course, they lost everything. They lost the House anyway. But, for my first experience in 80, and you were there too, but, with Carter, once Carter got the nomination, they all ran away from him. It was all like that. We'll talk to you after the election. Good luck. But don't come by us. So it's an interesting, again, it kind of shows, I don't know what it shows, but politics today is different than it used to be, and not in any better sense. And not that it was great at that point in all sorts of ways, but it's not gotten any better. Yeah, no, I know. Look, we covered a lot of stuff. We covered everything from the Pope to AI to data centers to what's going on with Trump getting involved in these elections. I always love having these talks with you, Joe, because same. It's good to see you and talk to you. I enjoy it very much. I know we had some technical problems at the top. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks, Joe. We may have Joe on as a other Joe guest host from time to time when either I or Joe Klein can't do it, because I am a Joe. There you go. Yeah, he's a Joe, and he's smart, and that's all we're trying to bring you guys. So thanks a lot, everybody. Thanks, Joe. Thanks for all right. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.